Hi, this is Randy Baps from UXstars.com, a website full of wonderful UX resources for UX professionals. And today I'm going to be talking about applicant tracking system red flags. My friend Leandrezzi asked for some feedback on a form that she came across recently, and her concern is that some of the best candidates will not be seen by hiring managers if this type of questionnaire is what they have to fill out. I suggest that you visit Lee's website, akathame.com, whether you are looking for your next position or you are looking for experts for your team. All right, this form is a lot to take in, and so I'm going to go through each question step by step and see where this went wrong. Okay, so when you see text like this, you can sometimes excuse it and say, okay, it's not that bad. But like when you read it out loud, sometimes it can grab you differently. All right, so let's read this one out loud. Please visit this link to complete a short culture survey. Okay, so there was a link there. It's best to complete the survey in a separate tab. If you don't see this job listed at the end of the survey, just choose General Survey. Now, one thing I do know about links is that you can set them up so that they open in a different tab. So I don't know if they really had to say that. There is a culture survey. Now, whether or not those are a good fit at this stage of the process, that is a whole nother discussion, which would be interesting to have people weigh in on. I think it's possibly a little too early for that if this is the first thing that the employee is going to be putting out there. At this point, they don't know if they'll ever even hear back anything on this opportunity before any kind of interview has taken place. So are they going to want to go through a culture survey and all that just to sort of apply for a job at this stage? I would prefer that happen later on. Okay, so it's a bit odd just from a usability perspective. You're asking them to fill out a survey, but like you have a text box here and it just begs for you to type something into it, but it doesn't really indicate that you are supposed to. I guess that this was possibly just some sort of generic form, and everything had to have a correlated text box with it. So I guess you start this whole thing off by leaving this required field blank. That's a little weird. If they're trying to say, did you fill it out? Like, it should just be a checkbox. All right. And, the way the whole thing ends is especially really odd. It says, if you don't see this job listed at the end of that survey, just choose General Survey. And you're like, shouldn't the survey know what the survey is? Just from this first question alone, it's not off to a super start. All right, let's keep it going if you'd like to. Please describe why you're interested in working at blank and why you're the right person for this position. Basically, this sounds a bit like a cover letter. You would think that they would just say, attach a cover letter. This one's not so bad, but, whenever you're inside these little text boxes, it can be annoying. I would prefer to sort of upload a Word document so I'm not squished into that tiny little section. Please describe why you're looking for a new job, when you're available to start, if you're comfortable with fully remote work, and what salary you're looking for. There's this saying where something can be a double-barreled question, where you ask two questions in one sentence, right? And then somebody says, yes! But you're like, oh, yes to which one, right? So there's no reason why they couldn't have broken those different questions up, right? Not only would it just make it more simple to fill out, it would make it a lot easier for them to filter on their side, right? Because, when you're able to start, right? Well, if that's its own date field, well, then they can see if it fits in that range, right? And it says, if you're comfortable with remote work, that would just be a checkbox. Oh, and I love it before you've even talked with anybody when they're like, tell us your salary, because, from an applicant's standpoint, you don't know if just saying the wrong number at this point is going to just weed you out from things. Like, you'll get any kind of feedback later on saying that was it, and then you're just sort of left wondering, right? And so, before you're talking with somebody on this form, I think that that's a bit much to ask. And if you are going to ask that, so help me, break them into separate fields on the form of the appropriate format. Are you able to travel to Chicago for quarterly team meetings? Okay, well, I think it's fair to ask this at this point if this is really critical. However, it should just be a checkbox. Um, like, if you have everybody type in a yes here, um, it just should be like check. That way, especially on the other side, you would know. I would also wonder if this is truly a requirement. Like, maybe you should end the whole survey at this point and not push somebody through the rest of it. Like, at the top of the whole thing says, this job must, have this travel requirement to Chicago. Only fill it out if you did, right? And maybe you have a checkbox later on to remind somebody, but this is a bit odd. For each of the jobs listed above or in your resume, we will ask you to arrange a reference call with your direct supervisor. Will that be a problem? Like, wow. I mean, so an interview hasn't even taken place yet, but like this could be sensitive information, right? Maybe you've gone through a few different positions, and maybe you weren't on most wonderful terms with one of those folks, right? And you're supposed to go and make sure that you are going back to them to set up a reference call with them. Okay, this is a bit sensitive, especially for this stage in the process. I'm not saying that you're never going to want references. A lot of people are very proud of the references that they have. But if somebody's just filling out this initial form indicating some interest in a position, you are saying, tell me everybody that you worked for and set up, a reference call and all that stuff. And, this seems to be, it's interesting when you say we only want to talk to your supervisors, because I think that it's also very valid to talk with your peers and sometimes subordinates too, right? Because if you're supposed to be in a leadership position, it would sort of make sense to do the full circle. All right. For the jobs you listed above or in your resume, please provide the reason you left and how your direct supervisor would rate your performance on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest. Wow. Okay, so they combined a few different things in here, right? They're really asking for some personal information for the first part here. You want me to just, take this form here and just say, "Oh, here's my life story of why I moved on from each position," right? And the way that they're setting this up here, like, are they going to talk to each one of these people and say, to see if your scale lines up with what the referencee person, this feels more like a discussion standpoint where you would be talking to the recruiter or hiring manager, and you would then be saying, "Oh, hey, can you describe your career journey to me, and what are you looking for next?" and something like that. Anyway, this is sensitive information. Somebody might have had a very good reason for leaving a past job, and they're just going to fill this out on this form and trust that in no way, shape, or form is this going to be a problem. Furthermore, when you fill out information on these forms, you as the candidate, you don't know, like maybe you're working somewhere right now, right? If you fill out all this stuff, could somehow this, get back to you as far as, backfiring, people being like, "Oh, hey, it could be a small social circle that you work in, right? And if they go back and they want to talk with certain people, maybe it gets back to where you are currently working." All right. So I would say, in a summary, yes. You might need to ask for some sensitive information during the whole interview process, but when you are first filling in the applicant tracking system form, you have to be considerate not only of how sensitive information is, but of their time, right? They might be going to various places filling out this form, and you are sort of dominating all this time and invasion of their history when you're going through it at this stage. All right. So if you're going to ask questions, think, should this be a checkbox? If this is a yes, no question, maybe it should be a checkbox. Like, And if you're going to have somebody fill out a survey, by all means, don't have like a big giant text box below making somebody wonder what should be in that. Put a lot of thought into what control should be on that form. So, yes, there is a difference in everything you like to know about a candidate and to start with versus what is proper and considerate. And, I didn't see this whole form, but I just have to say this every time I can. I didn't see any mention of an SSN, Social Security number, request on this form, but so help me, those things should not be collected when people are filling out an initial job application form. I have seen this. I have done it myself, but I don't know if I will in the future because it's just like, why do you need that? Like, if I get further into the interview process and you say you need to do some kind of check or you need this for tax reasons or whatever, fine, right? But I don't think that we want to, cause people to get into a pattern of saying, well, this form asked me to fill out my SSN, 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 SSN. It would be a bad applicant experience if people start having identity theft just because they wanted to move to a new job. Now, that, as far as I know, wasn't on this form, but since I had your attention, I thought that would be a big no-no to bring up as well. All right, till next time, see you later, and see you on uxstars.com. Bye-bye.